Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend and you're set to go. We got a couple of topics to cover today, but the main topic actually ties in. I'm going to have a couple of the guys talk, and it was funny. Within 2 hours, I talked to both these gentlemen within 2 hours of each other, and they both said almost the exact same thing, and it was the exact topic I was going to be talking about, or the main topic I was going to be talking about today, so I thought I'd have them share their experiences. And what it is that, because of the eye-to-eye, some guys have been waiting for, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, preparing for the eye-to-eye. So they've been really busting their behinds learning the 21 backwards and forwards. And I wanted them to, because they both said the exact same things. I'm going to have them share their experiences in that when you spend hours learning these scripts and doing them over and over and over, you're not just memorizing the script, but other things happen. So Jerry, can you kind of talk about what happened with you when you were memorizing these scripts over and over and over?
Yes, thank you, Mike. First of all, I'm celebrating my 1-year anniversary in July of this year. 1 year being with 5Q. So I've been, working at this and studying the scripts and practicing and recording. But as you said, with a little bit of a downtime in preparing, I was able to really spend time with each of the individual points, and I began to see the building blocks in there. It was like you said, the words just kind of flowed, but then the building blocks started to appear, and it was just like, oh my God, I can see why we're doing it here, and why we're doing this one here, and we just start building the presentation. It's just I was to coin a term, I was blown away. And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it wasn't just the script. I mean, all of a sudden you start to see, it's almost like they do in the movies where all the puzzle pieces started to fall into place, where it wasn't just the script you're memorizing. You saw why the script was constructed the way it was, why the words we were using are the words we're using, why we put a story here instead of later, or why we cover a story at all.
Exactly. Yeah, you could just see the building blocks, adding up. It was just, just amazing. And then again, your Friday sessions, have just been invaluable, especially when you go, very deep into each of the individual points. That just adds, to me, it just adds clarity to the entire point and to the entire presentation.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Jerry. And congrats on your 1-year anniversary. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Jonathan, what kind of insights did you have after going over the scripts over and over and over?
Well, kind of like what Jerry said is, you keep on. Well, for me, I kept on reading over the script and over the scripts, and every individual script, there were some places in the script where I was like, why do we keep on hammering this point? Why do we keep on saying this? And finally, I was reading them, and you finally, it's just kind of like an aha moment. And you're like, this is why I'm hammering this point at this particular time during the script, because it relates to another point that you're trying to make later, and you can fall back on that. And so it took me a long time after reading the scripts, literally probably 100 times, to get that aha moment and fully understand why we're saying the things that we're saying, why we use the particular words that we use, and the timing of it as well, like when we say it in the script and how we refer back to it later on in the script to drive home a point. And it was just, like I said, an aha moment for me.
Well, have you ever heard of the term flow, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah. So flow in athletics is where all of a sudden everything falls away. If you're a pitcher and it's flow, everything falls away and all you see is that catcher's mitt. And it's like everything else, and everything becomes, you get clarity on everything. But you can't, do you think any Little League pitcher really gets that flow? No, because they haven't done it enough. So you have to become really good at something before you can even hope for that flow. And again, it sounds to me kind of like I don't know if you can visualize this, Jonathan. I got to talk with Jerry. Was that it's almost like when you see in a movie and somebody's looking at something and all the parts are floating all around, and all of a sudden they start falling into place. Click, 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 click.
Oh yeah, it just comes into focus.
So Bruce is asking, what would be more specific about which points? Well, points like, Bruce, why we're covering a story, which if you take it out of context would be like, why are we covering this story? That seems stupid. I mean, an example that would be in the power of attorney, where we're talking about, if I had an investment and it grew from 10,000 to 100,000, would that be a good thing? If I had an investment from 50,000 to 10,000 grew to 50, would that be a good thing? And you're thinking, what the heck are we talking? Why are we talking this? What does this have to do with the power of attorney? So it's about points like that, Bruce, where we have things in there and there's reasons for them. Or we have a story in there and taken out of context, you're like, why are we talking about this story? Well, it's because if we don't talk about this story, 5 minutes later, an objection could come up. Also, I had a guy talk to me last week saying, Mike, I mean, he's a really good guy. He's a really good student, but he said, Mike, don't yell at me for asking this question, but do we really have to have the client? I mean, sometimes you just have somebody repeat something 5, 6, 7 times. Why do we really need to do that, or is once enough? So Jonathan, what would you did you have any clarity on why we have somebody repeat something 5, 6, 7 times, or was it more just about how the script was put together?
Well,
because that's out of context. Yeah.
Well, clarity on why we get them to repeat a certain point 5 or 6 times, and we spoke about that specifically because I asked that same question to Mike, and he made it very clear that the reason that we make someone repeat themselves 5 or 6 times because we're changing their attitude. We have to. It's one of the major points in changing how they currently feel, and especially came to changing how they feel about their advisor. Mike, I don't know if you remember us speaking about that specifically, but that's why we make the very important points. We make them repeat to themselves over and over and over again because it's very important, and we need to change their attitude and how they feel about that particular point or situation.
That's well said, Jonathan. When we change beliefs, we're going to have them repeat it 5, 6, 7, 10 times. If all we're getting them to do is state a fact, once is enough.
Yeah.
I mean, if I say, what color is the sky, and they say blue, I don't have to have them say blue 15 times. But if I'm getting them to change from being a Democrat to a Republican, how many times do you think I need to get them to validate that, Jonathan?
10, 15, 20 times.
Jerry, how many times?
A bunch.
Yeah. Like Fred saying 1,000 times. So that's why, if you notice in the scripts, there's some things I hammer 15, 16 times because I'm changing their beliefs. For example, with the 150 story, which we just talked about with power of attorney, see, they believe their job, or the financial advisor's job, is to make them money or to keep it safe. Getting access to the money isn't even on the agenda. It's not even in their mind whatsoever. So that's why I have them repeat over and over and over that the advisor's job is access more than return, more than keeping their money safe, because without access, either one of those things is moot. So that's why I have them say that 15 times, because before we talked, that wasn't even part of their mindset about advisors. But when I'm just getting them to say, so if I'm incapacitated and it's not the will I need, what do I need? Power of attorney. Great, I'm done. I don't need to have them say that 15 times. Once is enough. That's a fact. So does that make sense to everybody? So Jerry, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing. It's just funny because within 2 hours of each other, you actually talked about this, and it's our main topic today. And that, you know what, you have to practice something until you can't get it, not till you get it right, but till you can't get it wrong. Because when you practice it that well, all of a sudden things start to come to you, and you start to see things that you don't see when you just learn something just barely enough to do it right. So thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. So anybody know the name of this person that's on the screen right now? I don't see anybody writing it. Okay, well, she's a money manager. So let me get, oops, got to get my screen going here. She's a money manager. She's a top money manager. And she has $1.8 billion under management. Michael knows. Barron's Magazine named her 3 times as a top financial advisor. She has a nationally syndicated radio show. She's had incredible returns. Last year, 42%, 3-year average, 17%, 10-year average, 12%. These are what? Huge. Now I'm getting a lot of guys who know she is. And a lot of guys are actually talking about it. So as several of these guys, some of the advisors have said, did she really manage $1.8 billion under management? No, that's what she said she did. That's what Barron's reported she did. And of course, Barron's did a background check on her, didn't they? They validated her, the amount of money she had under management, didn't they? No. So she lied. She didn't have even close to $1 billion, let alone $1.8 billion. And they have emails from her and phone calls from her stating that fact, that she didn't even have close to that. Not even half of not even, hey, 500 million is not bad. She had about 500 million, but 500 million is 500 million, 1.8 billion. And why was she lying? And then her returns, guess what? Not even close. Well, I take that back. She does what many money managers do. What did she do for these returns? These returns were actually true. But many money managers, in fact, something, what was it, Foursquared or whatever the name, not Foursquared, but something squared here a while back, did it. Same thing. Nobody's getting it. This was fake. This was just a theoretical portfolio that she put together before or after. F squared, that's right, F squared, thanks Craig. So same thing, which what they created a fictitious, or not fictitious, it was an actual portfolio, but it was done after the fact. And she had no, just like F squared, she had no people in this portfolio because the portfolio didn't even exist when she was investing people's monies. So she back-tested it, put it into place, and said, look at what I would have gotten if I had this portfolio. Now, that's not how she said it. She said, this is my returns. But not a single client was in that portfolio because, guess what? That portfolio didn't exist when she had people investing. She created the portfolio after the fact. Guys, how many of you could have better returns than that if you could do portfolios after the fact? I hope all of you. So what's my point about this? What's my whole point about this slide about Miss Bennett? Oh, it's Dawn Bennett. Sorry, Dawn Bennett. And she's been now barred from the securities industry. So what's my point about, not advisors lie, who lies? Unfortunately, advisors are victims of this. That's right, Craig, money managers lie. F squared got caught, she got caught. So when your money manager shows you this portfolio, you know, here's the funny thing. How many of you, I want you to all answer this, how many of you scratch your head when your money manager says, this is what our average is, and this is what our clients have done, and then you look at your own clients, and you scratch your head. Why do you scratch your head? And this is even with money managers that you love. The numbers they report, you look at them, and then you scratch your head. Why do you scratch your head? Yeah, they never match. And is it because you get a higher return than what they're reporting, or lower? Your clients get a lower return than what they're reporting? And you know, and yet many of you still brag about how great your money manager is, even when they do this crap. So what you're buying into is what? Their story, not their facts. Their story, not their facts. Yeah, Mark said I fired them all. He just does it himself now. So that was the point, is guys, just because, hey, this lady, $1.8 billion under management, Barron's named her 3 times as the top financial advisor. We're thinking, what? She can't be lying, and what did we find out? She was lying. So guys, anytime somebody's saying they can do something they can't do, you should assume they're lying. So when we talk about money management, what do we tell people again? When the market goes up, the accounts are going to go up. When the market goes down, the accounts are going to go down. Luckily, in the past, more often than not, the accounts will go up. That's all we should be promising, nothing else. Make sense? Now let's get on to the fun stuff. So this is what kind of ties into what Jerry and Jonathan talked about. And Jay, one of our newer guys, pointed this book out to me called Peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise. How do you become an expert? And he put a lot of, Anders Ericsson put a lot of research into this using science, where Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book here a while back, and he put in a lot of anecdotes. So Peak is based on science. Malcolm Gladwell's book about 10,000 hours to become a master was more anecdotal. So this is the science, and I love this book. So let's talk about how you become an expert, because most people think you become an expert because you were born with it. You're born a genius. And do you think that that's the case? Do you think you're born a genius? Jay's got it right because you read the book, right? Or Jay read the notes, right? So successful people are not gifted. They just work hard and then succeed on purpose. And we're going to talk about that. Because here's the fact. When they looked at Nobel Prize winners, now there are a few exceptions to this, but the vast majority, did they have average and below IQs or above average IQs? Now there's exceptions there's exceptions to this, but most of them had average and even below average IQs. So why were they able to get Nobel Prize, win Nobel Prizes? They worked hard, Jay. Focus and work. Focus and work. Exactly, you guys. Focus and work. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And they've done a lot of research on this in brain science to find out. I've got to get caught up here. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. So since the 1990s, brain researchers have come up with a lot of information about the brain, how it works, what it's able to do, whether it can change or not change. Even when they've even found out that the brain can change, which for a long time that was not possible. So because of that, we can actually become or change our brains to react a lot different. And we're seeing that right now in a negative way. You've heard me complain about smartphones and the fact that it's made people dumber when it comes to attention span, being able to memorize things, being able to focus their attention on something longer than 15 seconds. So it is changing our brain, but we can change it back. We can change it back. So here's the funny thing. There are certain things that we can't change. There are certain things that we can't change, and that is, you've heard me talk about, I don't ask you to do anything that you're not capable of doing, because it's been done by hundreds of guys before you. So anything I ask you to do has been done by hundreds of guys before you. Some smart, some dumb, some wallflowers, some gregarious. I mean, all sorts of different people, and they've been able to do it. There's some things, if I asked you to jump 30 feet in the air, guess what? You couldn't do that. But here's the funny thing. Sometimes we think, oh, certain people are naturally gifted. Certain people are naturally gifted. For example, I mean, you look at LeBron. I mean, of course he can dunk the ball because he's what? Naturally athletically gifted. But here's the funny thing. In the past 15 years, is every dunk winner tall? Is every of the NBA dunk contest, is every winner tall? No. Spud Webb won back in the, he was 5'7". That means he's my height. I'm tiny compared to these guys. And he won the dunk contest. And I forget, there's another guy here just about 5 years ago, also like 5'7", 5'8", who won the dunk contest. So even when we could say that people can't do something physically because they're not physically able, guess what? Many times even that can be proven wrong with what? Work. Nate Robinson, that's it. Thanks, Jerry. Nate Robinson. Oh, welcome back, Jerry. Yeah, Nate Robinson. So Spud Webb and Nate Robinson, both tiny compared to everybody else out there, and they won the dunk contest. So even when we think that people aren't physically able to do it, we're proven wrong when people put their minds to changing. Make sense? So being born with talent is like being handed a dull blade. The blade is already there, you just need to sharpen it. Those born without talent have to learn to forge their own blade from scratch. And I'm from the latter. Which are you? So you know what? Yeah, do some people start with a head start? But that has nothing to do with whether you can do it or not. Just because somebody has a head start, does that mean you can't overtake them? No. Just requires what? More work. That's all. It requires more work. And you know what? Work comes down to fortitude. So let me get going here. Sorry about that. So I'm going to read a quote from this synopsis. Since antiquity, people have generally assumed that a person's potential in any given field is inevitably, unavoidably limited by that person's inherent or born with talent. According to this view, each of us is born with a set of fixed potentials, a potential for music, potential for mathematics. You know, I'm not good at math. Guess what they found about people who said they weren't good at math? They weren't good at math because what? Why were they not good at math? They didn't want to be good at math. They gave up. Yeah, they gave up. Good at sports or potential for business, and we can choose to develop or not any of those potentials, but we cannot fill any of those particular cups up past its brim. But we now understand that there's no such thing as a predefined ability. The brain is adaptable, and training can create skills such as a perfect pitch. Now, here's the odd thing. Did you know, because we think that you're born with perfect pitch, but guess what they found? Guess what they've researched and done studies. Guess what they found? They've taken people who were tone deaf, and guess what they magically did with them? They took people who were tone deaf, and guess what they magically did? They turned them into people with perfect pitch. So even that, I mean, so a lot of people think, oh, they were born with perfect pitch. And there are some people who are pretty much born with perfect pitch. But does that mean somebody without perfect pitch can't develop it? No, they can. If they what? Want to. If they want to. See, it's not, though, just learning. Because what they've found is learning isn't a way of reaching your potential. Learning is not a way of reaching your potential, but rather a way of developing it. Because if you decide what you want to do, you can do it. If you decide what you want to do, you can do it. See, it's developing, not learning isn't going to make, here's the sad thing. Learning isn't enough. Learning the information is not enough. You have to what? Know how to use the information. You have to develop your skills. Does that make sense? See, you've got to say, I think that if I keep working at this and want it badly enough, I can have it. It's called perseverance. Guess what they found out about this? If I keep, and it's counterintuitive. I think that if I keep working at this and want it badly enough, I can have it. Guess what they found? It's BS. Nope, Fred, it's BS. How many people want to, how many of you told me when you came on that you wanted to learn the 5Q system? You wanted to be a master at the 5Q system. How many of you told me that? Yeah. And if you wanted to, guess what? I've had this discussion over and over and over. If I had a fireman who has no skills, doesn't know anything about the financial industry, has never sold a thing in his life, and I gave him 2 weeks to learn the system, how much better would he know the system than all of you? He'd kill you. He would kill all of you. So you know what? I think that if I keep working at this and want it badly enough, I can have it is what, guys? Crap. Because if that was the case, what would you all be doing right now? You'd all be making $1 million a year. See, it's got to be the right sort of practice over a sufficient period of time that leads to improvement. And unfortunately, you're not using the right sort of practice. Is listening to the scripts over and over in your car the right sort of practice, do you think? Mike, I'm practicing every day. When I go on walks, I have your scripts on my MP3 player and I listen to them. I'm like, well, that's better than nothing. But and when push comes to shove, guess what that's really worth? Diddly-do. Yeah, Mike, I do your 15-minute drill every night when I drive home from work. We've talked about that. Can you do the 15-minute drill when you're driving home from work? Because 15-minute drill is what we're going to be talking about today, as well as learning scripts and everything else. The 15-minute drill is an example of how you become an expert, and we're going to go through that. But just listen to something is worthless. Is absolutely worthless. See, it's the right sort of practice. Not just practice, but the right sort of practice. If all I do is go out with my buddies, and if I want to be good at baseball, all I do is go out with my buddies and, we take turns at the bat, and we take turns fielding, and we take turns getting pop fly balls, will I get any better? Will I get any better if all I do is do that over and over and over again? It's funny. Yeah, I agree with Fred. You will get a little better. And that's a decreasing little, because you know what? How much better does a professional athlete get when a professional outfielder get when I'm hitting him pop fly balls? Is he getting any better? Or is already, if he wants to get better, what does he have to do? He has to have deliberate practice. And that's what this whole book, Peak, was about, was deliberate practice. And here's the problem with deliberate practice. Ah, shucks, sorry about that. I'm going between two screens here so I don't miss anything. So I apologize for that. Oh. So, and here's deliberate practice. it's designed to improve performance. Just fielding pop fly balls, is that designed to improve performance? Or do I have to hit the ball a little bit further away? Or do I have to hit the ball into the sun? Or do I have to do what? I have to not just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. I have to design to improve my performance, and I have to repeat it a lot. And here's the big thing. I need to get continuous feedback. And then it needs to be, and here's why most guys don't do it. It's mentally high demanding. That's why you guys don't practice the way you should. And it's not you guys, everybody. I mean, nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to do this, but it's successful people do what unsuccessful people refuse to do. And deliberate practice is highly demanding. How demanding is it to listen to a script in your car on the way home, guys? It takes a little willpower. Instead of listening to the radio or talk radio, you're listening to that. Yeah, it takes willpower, but how mentally demanding is it? You're right, John. It's lazy. It's lazy. It's lazy. And it's not much fun. I get that the 15-minute drill is not much fun. I get that running wind sprints is not that much fun. But it's those kind of things that develop world-class performance. So, does the 15-minute drill fit with a deliberate practice, guys? Is it designed to improve performance? Heck yeah. Repeat it a lot. I would do. I let you off with just during your work days. That's all I did. But we talked about a couple weeks ago. How often did Jerry Seinfeld write? Every single day. He's done it for the last decade, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Every single day he writes. Is it repeated a lot? Feedback, continuous feedback. How does the 15-minute drill give you continuous feedback? How does the 15-minute drill give you continuous feedback? The tape, right. You listen to the tape, you tape yourself, you listen to the tape, you tape yourself, you listen to the tape, you hear what you're doing. Is it, if you do it right, is it mentally demanding? Do you need to be on your toes when you're repeating something over and over? Now you've learned on some of these 5-minute or on these Friday calls that you got to do it over in different ways. Can you be doing anything else except the 15-minute drill when you're doing the 15-minute drill? Can you be knitting? Can you be looking at emails? Can you be driving? No, you are immersed in it. And because of that, I get it's not much fun. So when you guys tell me that you don't have 15 minutes a day to do this, we all know that's BS. If you got time to take a crap and brush your teeth, guess what you got time to do? This. So why aren't you doing the 15-minute drill? It's this. It's not much fun. It's mentally demanding. But if you want to get better, guess what you got to do? Things that are mentally demanding and not much fun. What would you add to that, Jeff?
Well, here's what I'd add to it. First, I'd say, the part where it's not much fun. One thing I was told when I wanted to get good at golf. So I took a few lessons. And the instructor told me, if you really want to get good, you know what you have to do? You have to go to the driving range. But I don't want you to hit a bucket of balls a day. What I want you to do is hit a bucket of balls, and it should take you an hour to hit a bucket of balls. Because what I want you to do is hit your shot. I want you to think about what went wrong and what you need to do different. Take a few practice swings and then hit the next one. Well, when I go with my 7-year-old son,
that sucks the fun right out of it, man.
The weird thing is, though, it is fun. Because when I go out on the golf course and I see the results, it's fun. And I don't mind it. I think it's not much fun when you don't see any results. So if all I did was go to the golf course and play on the driving range and never get on the course, that wouldn't be fun. Because I think this has taken a lot of my time. Why am I doing this? After a while, I'd wonder, why am I doing this? But when I go out on the course and I see my score go from 90 to 80, I'm like, oh, this is fun. It's fun to go out there and people say, wow, you're pretty good. I think the problem for you guys is you don't have enough meetings. So you guys practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And when you don't get to do it in front of anybody real and see the progress that you're making, I could see where that's a drag.
I'm going to argue against you on that. Because Jonathan and Jerry are not seeing people for the last 6 weeks, but guess what? Because they've listen to them, each crib note. They've done a crib note, turned it off, compared it to the script, thought about what did I do right there, what did I do wrong, then redid the crib note, taped themselves, compared to the script, and said, I got it. And then they went on to the next crib note, and they did the same thing. In fact, you know what, Jeff? If all you did was play golf, guess what? You wouldn't improve at all. It's what you do on the driving range that's improving, not playing golf. And
Right.
so if we're going to say that it's getting in front of people that's going to make us good, no, you better be freaking good before you get in front of people. Because if you're going to try to get good in front of people, guess what? Because if that was the case, guess what? You know what? There'd never be a spring training. There'd never be a fall training for football. Guess what they just do all day long? Play the games. No, it's not what you do in front of people. It's what you do before you get in front of those people.
Well, here's what I would clarify.
Okay.
Practice is fun when you see results. So if you're sitting there thinking this is no fun, I know why it's no fun, because that's all you're doing.
That I'd agree with.
Practice is fun. Hitting those golf balls is fun. I don't mind it because I see the results on the course. If I didn't see the results on the course, I would think, yeah, this is a drag coming out here every afternoon.
Right, so if there's no end, you're saying it's a means to an end. So if there's no end, that means it's going to be grueling.
Yes.
I would totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. Because if you're just practicing for the sake of practicing, that's worthless. You're practicing deliberate practice in order to be more successful on the golf course or to be more successful in front of people. And right, it is rewarding when your score goes from 90 to 80. And with people, it is rewarding when all of a sudden these people are saying exactly what the script says they're supposed to say. I just heard last week again somebody say, oh, Mike, it's fun to hear these Friday calls because, you know, when you and Jeff role play, Jeff just says what you want him to. Is that correct, guys? Does Jeff just say what I want him to say on these scripts? Or on these, can he say anything but what I want him to say because it's the way I frame the question? And for those of you that have actually been in the zone and have actually done a 21 pretty well, do people actually, it looks like you handed them the script before they actually do the meeting. It's like you gave them the script. They're like, Mike, I can't believe this. These people said exactly what the script says. Well, guess why? Yeah, Paul said he disagreed with me just a few minutes ago. So the thing is that deliberate practice, as Jeff has pointed out, I totally agree with what his point is, that if all we're doing is practicing without that's the means, if there's no end to it, there's no results that we can see from it, that's not going to be worthwhile. So what you're doing is, this hard practice is going to pay off. Guys, you can make $1 million a year. $1 million a year when you do this right. Why can I say that? Because if they explain to you for an hour and a half all the reasons they need to leave their guy, guess what they're going to do? Leave their guy. Travis was saying, I nearly started to laugh last week when a prospect was saying exactly what he was supposed to say. It's like, what the heck's going on here? Okay, so deliberate practice. Here's a flowchart of deliberate practice. Set up measurable goals. What's our measurable goal on a 15-minute drill? We find one thing that we did wrong, and our goal is to what? Never do, we may do everything else wrong, but what will we never do wrong again? That particular thing. That's why we do that same thing over and over and over and over, maybe 30 times in 15 minutes. If we're learning the script, what's our measurable goal? I want to get this crib note I'm working on right now perfect before I move on to the next crib note. See, listening to a whole script over and over and over, that's worthless. Instead, I'm saying, you know what, I may do nothing else, but if all I do is learn this next crib note perfectly, at least I got better today. At least I got better right now. Does that make sense? Break goals into skills, which we do, right? With the GOTS, it's either not over-talking them, or not, getting on their side after giving them a little verbal pat in the back when they say something right, or turning closed-ended questions into open-ended questions. So we're breaking those goals into skills. Make sense? Then we set up a practice plan with a 15-minute drill. What's the first 15 minutes every day? What should you be doing? And I want everybody to answer this. Because not answering your emails for 15 minutes, nothing is going to happen to your practice. Not answering your voicemails for 15 minutes, nothing's going to happen to practice. Not talking to your assistant for 15 minutes is not going to affect your practice? You know what's going to affect your practice? Not doing the 15 minutes. I got 2 people that have told me 15-minute drill, really. And now I'm up to 5. Really? Come on, guys. Everybody. Got 90 people on the call. Thank you. Now I'm getting it all. Integrate the skills. Incorporate feedback. Turn off the tape. Listen to what you're doing. And then get better based on what you just heard. Because if all I do is just, if all Jeff does is just hit the whole bucket of balls, is he incorporating feedback? Or after every single stroke, Jeff, you do what? That was hooked. I hooked that, or what's the other way? Hooked it or shanked it?
Sliced it.
Sliced it. Then you incorporate feedback. I know I must have had my, whatever. I dropped my shoulder. I moved my head, whatever it may be. Reflect on the results. Apply the Pareto principle. Work on the 20% that's going to give you 80% of the results. Identify high-value targets. Practice them repeatedly. Remove the least valuable steps. So when we're doing the 15-minute drill, how many things do we work on? 1. 1, 1, 1. And we only move forward when we've achieved what on that one thing? Mastery. Then we can go to an end, and then we start the whole thing all over. We set up a different measurable goal. Do you see how this works? This requires, is this fun, guys? Could you do this on a drive home with a 15-minute drill? Could you do this listening on a walk to these scripts? Hey, and don't get me wrong, listening to scripts is fine. But I've told you before, some of my favorite songs are from the 1970s. I've listened to Steve Miller Band songs probably 1,000 times. And still when they come on, how much of that song do I know? Only the fun parts. Not all of it. So listening to it is worthless. It's fun. It's better than nothing. But you have to engage your brain, which is what? Difficult. Mentally difficult and not always so much fun. Now, if I'm playing in a band, it's going to be a lot more miserable getting up there trying to play cover a Steve Miller Band song if I don't know the words. So then I'll put in the effort, right? So I do agree with, even though I was disagreeing with Jeff, I do agree with what he's saying is unless there's a reason to get better, guess what we're never going to do? The hard stuff. So yeah, but guys, you can make $1 million a year. Well, marketing would you even need the eye to eye if you were as good as me at and the other 13 guys that made $1 million a year with this? Would you need to be good? Would the eye to eye even need to exist if you're as good as me and those other 13 guys that made $1 million a year with the 5Q system? No, because anything we do, guess what? We close. And here's the funny thing. Those 13 guys, Jeff, could I stop a tape at 45 minutes and know exactly what all 13 of those guys were doing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What were they doing? Well, they must have been doing something different to be successful, Jeff.
No,
what were all 13 of them doing?
The exact same thing. They were all running the exact same meeting in the exact same order in the exact same way.
So when you say, can I talk to somebody successful to see what they're doing, don't be a dumbass, guys. We're telling you exactly what to do. As soon as you do everything that we've laid out for you perfectly and you're not making $1 million a year, then guess what you can ask us? Hey, what are those other successful guys doing?
Yeah, I think
it's hilarious. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my impression when people say that is what they want to know is what are they doing for marketing? And if I were to be honest, those 13 guys did all kinds of different things for marketing. Some of them were accountants that had tax clients. Some of them did seminars. Some of them had, some of them did a little of everything. They all had different ways of marketing. I think Mike's exactly right. But the one thing they all had in common was the 21-point checklist meeting. And so if you're wondering what they did for marketing, who cares? They all did something different. It's not about the marketing. If you want to know what makes you successful, it's that meeting. And that's what they were all really good at. And that's why you could all listen to the same tapes from the different guys at different points, and they'd all be in the same place because they all did that the same. So if you're asking what do they do for marketing, then you don't get it. Because they all got in front of people somehow. I don't know how, but they all got in front of people somehow. But when they got in front of those people, they were all really good at closing them.
And how did they get that good? Guys, if you don't know by now that I'm a not very likable, pushy, loudmouth, my way or the highway kind of guy, I don't know what could convince you of that. Talk to Missy. Talk to Jeff. Because that is who I am. So when you say, well, geez, I never had the skills that you have, guys, you didn't have to jump over the hurdles and do the things I needed to do to get good at GOTS and in motivational interviewing. Because I'm an a-hole. I am the total opposite of what we do with motivational interviewing. I'm the total opposite of GOTS. That is not in me. I had to learn those skills. And they've found, at Peak, the book was found that scientists have studied the findings are the same. Long-term training results in changes in different parts of your brain. Guess why I can do this now? Because I've done it over and over and over. I've created connections now that getting GOTS, I can turn on the GOTS when I need to. Have you ever seen the studies of what happens to the London cabbies are required to memorize the maps. London cabbies are required to memorize maps of London. And it takes these guys, some of these guys, 2 years. They have to memorize the map. That's part of their checkout to get a cabbie's license in London. And guess what they found out to their brain? What happened to their brain? When they look at London cabbie brains before they do that and after they do that, they've seen their brains have changed drastically. And but does that happen by practicing things until you get good enough to get it right occasionally? Or does that happen when you practice it until you can't get it wrong? Yeah, John says the first step is recognition. The first step is recognition. So here's the thing. You've heard me sometimes say when good enough is good enough, just go out there and do it. And that's kind of what Jeff is saying. You need to experience some with the game. You have to go out and experience some success with this. And that's the great thing about the 21. You don't even have to be very good at the 21 to see some success. But guys, the difference between some success is making $350, $400 a year and making $1 million a year. And guess what? The front side is difficult. The front side is difficult, but you think I work any harder to make, if I was, and I tell you straight out, if I was in personal production again, I'd easily make $2 million a year. No doubt, because 401ks are we see tickets now that would have been my highest ticket. Our average ticket is as big as my highest ticket back 15, 16 years ago. So here's the thing, though. Would I have to work any harder than you to make 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times more money than you make? Initially I did, because I had to learn this system backwards and forwards. But right now, if we went out, would I have to work any harder? I'm not getting any answers, so you guys don't get it. No, exactly, Fred, I wouldn't. Because once you have the skills, guess what? So I guess you can look at this. Good enough is good enough if you want to make $250, $350 a year. But if you want to make $1 million a year, you can't be good enough. You got to be what? You got to be great. And that's where, I think you need to be good enough just to get out there and do it. As Jeff said, you need some positive feedback that this stuff actually works in the field. Otherwise, you're not going to put in the time and effort and mental energy and the difficulty of practicing if you don't see it in work. But if you want to keep getting better, you got to keep what? Doing deliberate practice. See, deliberate practice, good enough, you get a lot of payback. Do you see that? With good enough, that's the good thing about the 21. If you're good enough at the 21, what kind of results do you see? Huge results. For very little effort, you see huge results. Do you see that? Now, once you get to good enough, I get it. It takes more and more effort to get what? Better. But that's the difference between a guy who plays Division I baseball and goes to the big leagues. The difference between a guy who makes the minor leagues and goes to the big leagues. How much difference is there in their skills, guys? Huge amounts or tiny amounts between a minor league baseball player and a major league baseball player? Tiny. And how much effort did it take to get there? Man, they had to put in a huge amount of effort just to get a little bit better to go from minor league to major league. So what would you add to that, Jeff?
Well, one of the things I read was that the biggest predictor of somebody going to Major League Baseball, and I probably said this before, so maybe you guys will know the answer. What do you think is the biggest predictor if someone's going to make it to the major leagues? Any ideas? I don't know if you're getting any answers.
It's usually small. Oh no, I don't. Attitude, discipline,
Nope.
work,
Nope.
dedication.
If your dad played Major League Baseball, your chances of becoming a major leaguer skyrocket. I think it's like 80% of sons whose dads play Major League Baseball make it to the major leagues?
Because they know somebody?
No, because they tell them exactly, here's what you have to do. Here's how you have to practice. This is exactly what you need to do if you want to be a major leaguer. That's why sons make it to the major, that's the biggest predictor. Because their dad tells them, no, this is how you have to practice. You have to hit 50 balls off the tee every day. That's what you have to do. And when you hit a ball off the tee, I'm going to tell you what, no, level your swing, try it again. No, level your swing. You're not leveling it. Drop your shoulder. Try it again. There you go. Keep your shoulder down. Try it again. He knows exactly what you need to do to get to the major leagues because he did it. And he shows his son step by step, here's exactly what you need to do to be good enough to be a major leaguer. And that's what you guys have access to. Somebody who's done it, who will tell you exactly what you need to do it too. But you got to take advantage of it. You can't
It's
just
funny you
sit
bring
and
that.
wait.
Yeah, you hit it on the head, Jeff. Is that deliberate practice requires an expert, somebody who's done it before. Because deliberate practice, deliberate practice is not about reinventing something. It's about finding something that's already succeeded and nailing it. So that your point is perfectly made there. It's not the fact that some guy doesn't have more athletic skills than the son of a big league player. He just doesn't know how to deliberately practice on those skills to get good, to get that tiny bit better. Because it's not all about athleticism, is it?
No, it's part of it is just knowing what you have to do, knowing the steps along the way, and then showing you exactly how to do them and what you need to do next, the order that you need to do it, the thing you need to do, and that's, yeah, because the truth is there's a lot of good baseball players out there. There's a lot of good athletes. And so it isn't how fast you run is the biggest predictor or what your hitting percentage is. It's whether or not your dad played.
And that's what they found out with chess masters. You can play chess till you're blue in the face, but if you don't have a chess master who's teaching you not how to play the game, but to look at the board and see things 10 steps ahead, to have you play a gazillion games in your head or study all the major chess games in the past, you're not going to be good. If all you do is play chess, guess how good you're going to be? Not very. I mean, you're going to be better than me, but as compared to a chess master, you're not going to be very good. What chess masters do is they work with coaches who then have them go and look at all the games that have been played before. It's not about playing. In fact, chess masters don't play a lot of chess. Guess what they do? Chess masters do not play a lot of chess. Guess what they do? They look at, they basically watch the tapes. Now, for them, it's just going back. They can look at all the chess games that have been played before and see move after move after move after move, what happened. They're watching the film, and that's how athletes do it. See, they're rewiring their brains to when they look at a chessboard. They're not. Do you think a chess master sees the chessboard in any way the way we see the chessboard? Not even close. Remember what we were talking about Jonathan and Jerry, where all of a sudden it's like the movie again. All the little things, all the little pieces of the puzzle are falling into place and together. They see things that we don't see. See, that when they look at all sorts of data, guess what they see? To us, it looks like what? All sorts of data, all sorts of pieces all over the board. But they see things 5, 10 moves into the future. Right? And that's what happened. That's what Jonathan and Jerry are starting to experience by doing this thing over and over and analyzing, stopping, recording, listening, reviewing, doing it again, recording, stopping, listening, reviewing, making adjustments, listen again, boom, boom, and all of these data points, all of the scripts are starting to make sense now. Do you get that? See, guess what a quarterback does? And Jeff, you're probably better at talking about this than me. So what is it? What's the difference between a Drew Brees or a top-notch quarterback and a top collegiate quarterback? Top-notch pro and a collegiate. What's the difference?
The top-notch pro, I think, what they would say is, the game for a professional quarterback, the game is slower. And it's not literally slower.
It's actually faster.
It's actually faster, but they just see things. They know what they're supposed to look at. They know what they're just good at reading defenses. But that's something that you're not born with. No one's born with the ability to read defenses. It's something that you can get better at. It's a skill that's acquired. And it's not always who spends the most amount of time in the film room. It's really who spends the most amount of time watching film the right way.
Yes, deliberately.
And that's part of when they first get in the league. That's what they're taught. They watch film with the coach. And then later they watch it on their own. But the coach has to teach them. Here's how you watch it the right way. Because if all you're going to do is look at the play, you're not going to be any better than me, who watches a lot of football. I see more than most people, but I don't see what they see. It's because I don't look at it the right way.
Can I give an example of that, real-life example?
Sure.
What are the reflexes of an 18-year-old compared to me?
Oh, an 18-year-old would have much quicker reflexes.
Who's a better driver?
You would be.
Why?
You have more experience. You know.
I see things without even seeing things, right?
Right.
I can see. I'm coming up on a situation at a four-way stop, and I'm seeing things. Behavior of the other drivers and speed of which they're going, and if they're slowing down or not. So, do I even think about that, or is that just my brain has seen it so many times going click, 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 click?
Yeah, it's just automatic. You know when you're driving by and you see somebody pulling up that guy might pull out, so you slow down. Whereas an 18-year-old doesn't know that.
And that's kind of what we're talking about right now, right?
Yep. You need somebody to show you here's what you need to be looking for, here's what you need to be listening for, here's what you need to be prepared for. See? Without that, yeah, you have the benefit of somebody who has experience.
But do you think that's fun, Jeff, for them to sit in there and mentally dissect every single play? The quarterbacks.
No.
That's hard work. And sometimes, you know what, guys, can we admit, sometimes, and I'll say this, there are days I'd rather dig ditches than what I do. And what they're doing is way more difficult physically than what we're doing. Can mental work be as hard as physical work, guys? That's why we don't want to do it. But if you want to be great, guess what? You can't just sit there and watch films, as Jeff said. You have to put in the mental effort and improve. Every time you watch a play, you should learn one more thing from that play, or guess what? Your viewing of that play was worthless. If you're not getting better with every time you watch that film, guess what? If you don't pick out one more thing from that play, if you don't pick out one more thing that the defensive tackle is doing, or one more tell that the linebacker is doing, guess what? It was a worthless. You just wasted that time. But in football, is a tenth of a second big or small for a quarterback, Jeff?
That's huge.
That's where you're talking about the game slows down for them.
Yeah.
And guys, do you think when I'm with a client, how slow do you think that? Do you think that I'm doing things and having a whole conversation with myself as I'm doing those things? Heck yeah. I'm evaluating how it's going. I'm evaluating whether she's on board and he's not on board. I'm evaluating whether I'm doing all that stuff because I'm seeing the play develop in front of me. You know what that comes from? Deliberate practice, and it's hard. It's hard. You got to decide, what am I going to get better at? You got to repeat it till you get better at it. You got to continue. The only way you're going to know you get better is getting feedback from listening to tape and seeing whether you get better. It's mentally demanding. It's not much fun. But if you want to have an ATM where anytime you want more money, you just do another meeting, guess what? And your whole worries about marketing melt away. Deliberate practice. You set up your goals, break those goals into skills, set up a practice plan, integrate those goals, incorporate. Do you get it? And you don't move on until you've gone through every single step. This is what the 15-minute drill, and it's the same thing with scripts. Should you move on from a crib note until you know that crib note? No. You do not move on, because what's the point of getting half-ass at a crib note? None. I know it's boring. See, deliberate practice, here's the thing. You develop skills that others before you figured out how to do. That's what Jeff is saying. It's a professional, the dad who's a professional player that can tell that son exactly what he needs to do to get to the point where he can be in the big leagues. And guys, you have that. You have that. And Jeff and myself, I have made $1 million back when making $1 million was $1 million. And Jeff has helped 13 other guys get to the point where they're making $1 million a year. Guys as young as 25 years old. Guys as old as 65 years old. Guys in the north, south, east, west, in the Midwest. It's all been done before. You know what? You have the goose that laid the golden egg. You've got this. We can tell you exactly what skills you need to develop to do that. But obviously, that's going to put you outside your comfort zone, which a lot of you guys are very comfortable telling Jeff and myself that we're putting you outside your comfort zone. But guess what? If you want the kind of income you want, guess where you're going to be much of the time as you're learning this? Outside your comfort zone. You're going to constantly, the only way you can get better at skills is trying skills that are just out of your reach. And it requires maximal effort. And I know that sucks, man. I understand. Like I said, mental effort is harder than physical effort. You have to have a specific target. You need to know what that is, and vague does not work. I want to get better. What's that worth, Jeff? I want to be a better golfer.
Yeah. Or I want to lose weight. That's worth nothing.
You got to know exactly what you're trying to do. And it requires your full attention. It requires that feedback loop. If you're not sending us tapes, if you're not listening to your tapes in the 15-minute drill, guess what? All your practice is worthless because you may be practicing the same bad habit you're trying to break. It produces and is based on mental movies. That's why the quarterback can see things happening a tenth of a second better. That's why when I'm in front of people, I'm having a whole conversation with myself other than the conversation I'm having with them. It takes skills, taking the skills you currently have, and you pick them apart. So when you guys tell me, yeah, I really nailed this meeting, that tells me that you don't have a clue what you're doing. I love the guys that say, man, I picked so many things and out that I did wrong. And when I listen to their tapes, those tapes are way better than the guy that tells me, yeah, I nailed this meeting. And then I got a guy that says, yeah, I did a lot of things wrong, and I was picking those out. When I listen to that guy who's hard on himself, his tape ends up being better than the guy who tells me that they nailed the meeting. You got to take the skills you currently have and you got to pick them apart. Copy what the expert, guys, you have the expert. Copy it. And it ends up that Malcolm Gladwell is saying to go from 0 to great, it takes 10,000 hours is not true. If you do deliberate practice, guess how quickly you can cut that in half. You can cut that in a quarter if you're deliberately practicing, if you're evaluating everything you're doing and making sure you're getting better every time you practice. You're just not practicing. Just practicing is worthless. You have to go into the practice knowing what you're trying to accomplish. Just one thing and get better at that one thing. You know, and there's another example of this. Guess what? Y'all saw Top Gun. What did they do after they had a dogfight? What did they do? The reason the U.S. Navy pilots are awesome is they found out that every time they fought, they went into the room and debriefed. Guess how much better they did the next time they went up? They've analyzed it. Guess what they found out with doctors and nurses? If they have a program where they're constantly analyzing what they're doing, guess how good they can get? They've actually looked at this. And they found out that doctors and nurses that don't constantly have a program where they're constantly analyzing each other and finding out what they've done and what they did better and because they found that experience is worthless. Experience is worthless. It does not make you an expert because you can do the same wrong thing over and over and over and over. It's evaluating what you're doing and seeing if it's the right thing and how it worked out and could we have done it better. That's what, guys, think about Olympians. Do you think swimmers? Do you think, and you know, here's the difference between, we're going to go a little bit over, but this is worthwhile talking about, guys. This is worthwhile talking about. Active practice versus passive learning. If you're not actively looking at getting better, you're not going to get any better. Passive is worthless. Olympian swimmers, do you think they just swim and try to swim harder the next time they get in the pool? No. They're looking at drag coefficients. They're looking at how their stroke is angle-wise. Are they pulling back? And a fraction of an inch can make how big a difference in the Olympics? Huge. See, hard work is not good enough. Repetition is not good enough. You have to do it with deliberate practice, which is evaluating what you're doing and trying to make one thing better. Just doing something over and over and over is worthless. And they found that hard work, even for experts, like we talked about with Olympians, is not enough. You got to get out your comfort zone. So you may be disappointed if you fail, but you're doomed if you don't try. Small daily improvements, not practice, but improvements. Not practice, but improvements are the key to staggering long-term results. And you all know this, Milo, who started to, he walked up the hill with a calf, and then what did he do every day? Until he could walk up the hill with a full-grown bull. That's what you need to do. Charles Euster at 95. Guys, this guy looks better than friggin' me at 90, and I'm half his age. I wish I was almost half his age. So just because you're old, you know what? Can't teach old dog new tricks is 100% what? BS. Anybody can get better. Extraordinary results come from taking ordinary steps every day. The harder you practice, the luckier you get. Not the more you practice, the harder you practice. Not the more, the harder. And you can change your DNA, and we've got that for you. You practice a 21-point checklist by learning a crib note at a time, evaluating, comparing it. Is it good enough? Not just doing it over and over and over. Get better at a crib note before you move on to the next one. The 15-minute drill, get better at a skill before you move on to the next one. That's deliberate practice. So I hope you guys, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most important Monday call I've done in a couple of years, if you take it to heart. Make sense? So I hope that you do. Watch it again. Practice deliberately, and you can make as much as you want. Make sense? You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you all on Friday. Thanks, everybody.